Set in the future, Gattaca tells the tale of a society so advanced that nearly all human life begins as genetically engineered embryos created free of disease, disability, and even cosmetic disadvantages like baldness. While most people are destined for physical and intellectual greatness, not all born into this society have been engineered, leaving a segment of the population, referred to derogatorily as invalids, to suffer not only from medical problems, but from extreme prejudice from those who have been engineered, referred to favorably as valids. As an invalid, Vincent Freeman was branded with a social scarlet letter from the moment of his birth. Using technology that allowed for the diagnosis of current and future health problems immediately after delivery, his parents learned that their non-genetically engineered son had myopia and a heart condition that would likely result in his death around his 30th birthday. Deterred by the news of their son's genetic weaknesses, Vincent's father, Anton, altered their plans to gift his firstborn son his name. Instead, that name was reserved for their second-born and genetically engineered son. Genetic classism is the standard operating procedure in Gattaca, and Vincent endures discrimination in virtually every social, professional, and academic sense. He dreams of becoming an astronaut for Gattaca Aerospace Corporation, but despite his intelligence and aptitude for the position, he is prohibited because of his genes. Determined to achieve his goal at any cost, Vincent looks to black market measures. He hires a man who connects invalids, desperate to be freed from the shackles of their genetics, with valids selling their identities. He is matched in age and appearance with Jerome Eugene Morrow, a once world-renowned swimmer who, after earning only second place in an important competition, lost the use of his legs after being hit by a car abroad in a suicide attempt. With Jerome's disability hidden from his medical records, purchasing his identity and last known physical condition gives Vincent the means to enter Gattaca. Vincent undergoes invasive procedures to more closely match Jerome's height and appearance, and offers financial support in exchange for a continuous supply of Jerome's blood, urine, hair, and tissue, used to pass routine identity scans. However, when an employee at Gattaca is suddenly murdered, police inspect the premises and find the eyelash of an invalid who, despite a lack of supporting evidence, instantly becomes the prime suspect. With detectives in hot pursuit of Vincent for a crime he did not commit, he risks being exposed for committing an equally reviled crime, assuming the identity of a valid and infiltrating a class to which he does not genetically belong. Gattaca takes the misapplication of genetic engineering to its obvious conclusion, a society wherein some are benefited at the expense of others. The film serves as a catalyst for considering how humanity can apply concepts in bioethics to address such issues as the sale of body parts, and more notably, the social implications of genetic engineering and the potential for genetically based discrimination. For the ethics novice, the film provides a well-rounded representation of perhaps the most fundamental of bioethical dilemmas, ensuring that endeavors to eliminate health problems do not leave behind swaths of the population due to prejudice or misuse of resources. While the larger themes will be explored later in this presentation, consider how the film illustrates utilitarianism. According to the Internet Encyclopedia of Philosophy, utilitarianism can be summarized as doing the greatest good for the highest number of people, maximizing pleasure and minimizing pain. On one hand, GE technology allows for many people in Gattaca to lead productive and healthy lives. Individuals are designed to fulfill specific roles in society, thereby improving total utility for those who have been engineered. On the other hand, treatable conditions like myopia, or minor imperfections like baldness, are soon seen as genetic defects worthy of discrimination, creating a class of people who are disadvantaged in every regard. The utility of these individuals is destroyed, and they are caused excessive pain. How should society balance the benefits for the majority against the cost for the minority? As another example, while all four of Beauchamp and Childress's principles are on display throughout the film, Gattaca offers insight into the importance of justice, particularly regarding the distribution of resources. With resources used not only to eliminate diseases, but also arguably insignificant traits like shortness and shyness, the failure to provide medical aid to invalids is shocking. Resources were not used to find treatments for heart conditions like the one that plagued Vincent, nor was he offered treatment for myopia, a minor visual impairment correctable through an inexpensive laser surgery. Is it ethical to continually spend in pursuit of the highest possible quality of life for the majority while ignoring the plight of those with the lowest quality of life? The blatant disrespect for autonomy is a central theme throughout Gattaca. Invalids are forced to follow narrow and predetermined paths regardless of wants and needs, within a society that purposefully leaves little room for the genetically imperfect. One way in which Vincent was plagued by a lack of autonomy was in his pursuit of a job at Gattaca, demonstrated through the interview process. As an invalid, Vincent was scrutinized in interviews before being repeatedly overlooked by many companies, despite being objectively qualified. After his identity change, Vincent applied at Gattaca. Rather than ask about his credentials for such a demanding position, his entire interview process consisted of proving his genetic superiority. None of the ailments that previously kept Vincent from being hired had been corrected, so the only way in which he was better suited for the position afterwards was that he was now considered valid. In this way, valids systematically oppress invalids and undermine their autonomy for personal gain. The choice between being a low-level employee at one of two companies can hardly be seen as autonomous to a person who aspires to be anything else. Perhaps the film's most pervasive concept relating to autonomy is the sale of biological matter, and thereby one's identity through the black market. With an entire class of people oppressed by their genetic shortcomings, the demand for the biological matter of valids is high. The supply is met by unlucky valids who have become unable to enjoy their previous privileges. Such is the case for the newly paralyzed Jerome, who finds selling his identity and biological matter to be his best option. While it might seem that this transaction was mutually beneficial between a willing buyer and seller, there are two reasons to suspect that this choice was not entirely autonomous. In an article titled Paid Organ Donation, the Case Against, Anya Adair explains that organ trafficking and transplant tourism target impoverished and otherwise vulnerable donors, leading to inequity and injustice. Jerome's mental state must be considered. His decision to sell his biological matter was made after a traumatic loss which triggered a suicide attempt. With his mind clouded by depression, was Jerome competent to be making such significant medical decisions, especially considering the influential nature of lifelong financial support? Or does this system prey upon the injured to allow invalids the chance to level the playing field? Second, Vincent's overtaking of Jerome's identity was painful. Most notably, he underwent an invasive surgery on his leg bones to become taller, yet he was all too eager to proceed to escape his limited professional and social opportunities. So the question must be asked, is Vincent truly making an autonomous decision by purchasing another person's biological matter, or is he again following a narrow path set by those in power in an effort to follow his dreams? Is Jerome's decision to sell his identity an autonomous one? Or is he too now stuck with limited opportunities within a society that has no room for someone in his condition? The horrific scientific experiments carried out on test subjects in Nazi Germany provide perhaps the most succinct argument for why the respect for autonomy must be balanced against the impulse to perfect the human race. As genetic engineering increasingly becomes the way of the future, the concerns raised in Gattaca need to be grappled with. Will society leave room for those with disabilities to enjoy meaningful opportunities and to make autonomous decisions? Or will the preference for the healthy majority lead to a wanton disregard of the rights of others to make autonomous decisions at all? Another omnipresent theme throughout Gattaca is the notion that genetic engineering causes social consequences. In an article titled Human Genetic Engineering Should Be Allowed, Ronald Green voices several concerns about the social impact that directly relate to concepts from Gattaca. First, Green wonders if the ability to design children to meet the specifications of parents will negatively affect relationships within families. The poor relationship between Vincent, Anton, and their parents certainly illustrates this fear. From birth, Vincent is deemed unworthy of his father's name due to his genetic defects, and the name is instead reserved for their genetically superior son. Anton, who is taller, stronger, and faster than Vincent, effortlessly earns the adoration of his parents. Conversely, despite Vincent's dedication to his schoolwork, his parents urge him to abandon his dreams to become an astronaut, since according to his father, his only chance of entering Gattaca would be as a janitor. Vincent was treated so poorly that after graduation, he severed all ties with his family. Society's attitude towards invalids permeates the Freeman household, fostering an emotionally abusive dynamic and causing a genetic hierarchy to develop between the two children. Green wonders whether gene manipulations will diminish our freedom by making us creatures of our genes or our parents' whims. Will genetic advantages force people into roles they do not want? In Gattaca, Vincent attends a performance by a famous concert pianist. After playing a beautiful song, the pianist bows, removes his gloves, and throws them to the crowd. Upon catching a glove, Vincent is surprised to find that it fits a 6-fingered hand. His date informs him that the song can only be played with 12 fingers. Had this person made an autonomous decision to become a pianist, or had the genetic decision-making of his parents determined his occupation for him? Had he deviated from his parents' plan, would he have fallen victim to the same familial and societal discrimination that Vincent experienced? Green's questions beg a concerning conclusion. Will genetic engineering usher in an era where different genetic classes exist separately from one another? In Gattaca, Vincent pursues a forbidden romance, so categorized because of the genetic differences between them. Not only are romantic relationships between valids and invalids unheard of, platonic relationships seemingly only happen in forced interactions, like those involving the police, and involving the sale of biological matter. Green leaves room for hope, stating that genetics could also become a tool for reducing the class divide. Although Gattaca fails to meet this optimistic objective, it is clear that the technology exists to do just that, to prevent even minor visual problems like myopia and cosmetic problems like shortness from causing suffering. If resources can be allocated to provide each embryo with relief from major disabilities and illnesses, rather than eliminating both major and minor ailments from one class while providing nothing for the others, the potential for negative social consequences born of imbalanced power could be negated. With GE technology continuing to advance at a rapid rate, now is the time for discussions regarding the most ethical ways to allocate resources. One question that underlies many bioethical debates is, just because we can, does that mean we should? Gattaca is an excellent film choice for individuals interested in exploring that very question, especially as it pertains to GE technology. In addition to illustrating the importance of honoring the 4 principles and distributing resources ethically, Gattaca gives viewers a reason to consider whether or not some advancements are even useful. If the technology existed to remove traits like shyness, would that make doing so worthwhile in the sense that it would alleviate real suffering? Or are resources better used towards finding cures for heart problems, like that which Vincent was left to suffer with? Just because a person can voluntarily sell their biological matter, does that mean this should be tolerated? With compelling characters, undertones of forbidden love, and a truly surprising and heartbreaking ending, Gattaca is highly recommended for anyone interested in contemplating any number of bioethical concepts. As GE technology fast approaches, the key to eliminating the trials and tribulations associated with many genetic conditions lies just out of reach. It is imperative that the social implications explored in Gattaca be thoroughly considered to avoid the creation of subservient and ruling classes divided along genetic lines.